Thank you so much to Reka for inviting me. It's a real honor. I wanted to start by giving a little background on myself and then share a couple lessons. As Reka said, I'm an economist. I earned a PhD. I've been a professor for over 20 years. My research focus is on energy, and I've done several projects in India, although much to my great regret, I don't have a current project ongoing in India. I'm moving into the role of associate dean, which is about as close in academics as you get to being in a management position. In general, academics are very kind of single-minded and not much, they don't have much taste for being managed. It's a very non-hierarchical environment, but as I said, the associate dean is kind of as close to management as you get. I wanted to share my experiences, though I know that since I've been in the US and I've been in academics and not in business, my experiences have been different from yours, but I think there's still some general lessons that I can share. Several weeks ago, I was on a panel in the US for female high school students who were interested in mathematical fields, including economics. And it was really interesting for me to hear from other women and hear some of their experiences and what their lessons were. So some of their lessons overlap with the ones that I'll share. The first lesson I wanted to speak about was about mentorship. So some people say you need to find a mentor. What I would say is kind of a variant of that, which is to find as many mentors as you possibly can, to kind of socialize or crowdsource this idea of mentorship. I found that everyone has a unique perspective, and you need to kind of see what works for you. You need to understand where individuals, where kind of possible mentors are coming from, what their perspective is, and talk to other people and see, the more people you talk to, the more you learn different ideas, and the more you learn, if you're getting the same advice kind of over and over, the more you learn that might be the kind of general or the correct advice. So I would strongly encourage that. I firmly believe in mentors, but I also believe that you can have one mentor for kind of work issues, another mentor for work-life issues, and you can have different mentors at different points of your life. The second lesson that I wanted to share is really in the spirit of the conference, in the spirit of future-proofing yourself. And this was definitely a theme that came up on the panel that I was part of a couple weeks ago. This idea that change will happen. You will very likely go through at least several career changes. Some of the women that I was on the panel with had dramatic career changes. There was someone who had been a professional dancer but had become a medical doctor. Another person that had started a PhD. She was on the road to be an academic but decided to go work for a startup. So basically, there were 7 other people on the panel. I was the only one who hadn't had a real career change. So I think that's one way in which academics is different. Academics, it's very easy to kind of stick in the same job. You have tenure. You can't get fired, basically. So it's very easy not to have change. I think knowing that change will happen, I would encourage you, going back to the first lesson, to use your network. That there's someone else that likely has at least contemplated going through a similar change to the one that you're thinking about. So someone else has likely done it, and someone else can likely share the experience with you. I think in the spirit of thinking about change and kind of leaving yourself options for change, I wanted to give my third lesson, which is, and I'll say it first in the language of academics, and then I'll kind of translate it. So in academics, someone once told me that you should treat every talk you give as though it's a job talk. So the way it works, when you earn your PhD in economics, you prepare about an 80-minute talk, an 80-minute seminar describing one particular research project. And then you're invited to go to other universities and give this, what's called your job talk. If you're lucky, the job talk turns into a job. And then, as I said, there's a lot of job security in economics and in academics. And so it's kind of tempting to be complacent and say, okay, I've done my job talk, I've got a job, it doesn't really matter. But you're still invited to come share your research and present your research. And so the advice that I was given that I think is really good is you want to treat every time you're giving a talk as though you're giving a job talk. You want to imagine that people are considering you for a job. Basically, if you're going to spend time on it, you want to do the best you can do. You want to put your best foot forward. I think one corollary of this is learning to say no. Just learning to if you're going to treat every talk as though it's a job talk, you want to put time into preparing it. You want to make sure you're doing your best. And so you need to, as people have said, exercise the no muscle. And I will say that these lessons are a mixture of things that I have done myself and things that I wish I had done. And this last one is more along the lines of things I wish I had done. So I'm not very good at saying no. I've tried to get better over time. I've tried to learn from other people who I've seen who are very good at saying no, but it's something that I've needed to work on. So the next lesson that I wanted to share, it's funny because Vina used this exact same expression. People like to talk about the work-life balance, and I would definitely encourage you to replace that with work-life integration. That is something that's worked very well for me. I have two children. They are now age 16 and age 18. So my son, the older, the 18-year-old, just left to go to university. I will say it's really tough when they're young. There's kind of no two ways about it. If you have a baby, if you have a toddler, there's just so much going on with them. That period is very draining, I think. After that period, I found that it worked for me to bring my work back to my home, to tell my kids what I was working on, to discuss it with them, engage them with it. And as they got older, I've been able to bring my children on work trips with me. So I've done a fair amount of work in sub-Saharan Africa, and I've brought my son with me, I've brought my niece with me, I've brought my 81-year-old father to China with me. I tried on this trip to convince my 16-year-old daughter to come. It didn't work out in the end, but I hope the next time I come to India to bring at least one member of my family. I know that in academics, this doesn't work in every work situation to bring your kids and kind of expose that part of yourself so much, but I would encourage you to look for opportunities and definitely bringing the work back to home. I think it's enriched my kid's life and it's worked for us. So the last lesson that I wanted to share, and again, this is in the spirit of things that I wish I'd done, is not to beat yourself up, not to be too hard on yourself. This is also hearkening back to the idea of using your network and understanding that someone else has likely experienced something similar. So let me just give you one recent story. I was invited to another university recently to talk to them about their energy programs. I'm as I said, before I work on energy issues, and before I became an associate dean, I was the faculty director for an energy institute. And so they wanted to kind of understand what UC Berkeley has been doing in terms of energy. And so one of the questions for me was, well, when you think of this university and energy, what do you think of? And I was kind of thinking to myself, oh my God, I should have gone to their website and done more research. I should have been better prepared for this. But I hadn't. And so I said, well, when I think of energy, I think of the several faculty who I know who do energy. And I don't think of anything kind of holistic in terms of energy at this university. And so after the talk, one of the women who was part of the panel that was interviewing came to me and said, a week before you came, we had Ernie Moniz, who was formerly the Department of Energy Secretary in the US, come, and he answered exactly the same way. When we asked him, what do you think of when you think of this university's energy focus, he said exactly the same thing. And so, I'd been beating myself up and telling myself that I should have done more research, but I think it's just, one of many examples where it was perfectly fine, where I think it tends to be a habit of women, as I understand from the psychologists, to kind of be hard on ourselves. But I think you want to understand that there are likely other people who have gone through something very similar. So just to conclude, I guess I would praise Rika for organizing this event. I think it's really important to learn from others and to begin to form networks. And so, yeah, I think it's great that you're having this event, and I hope that many of you will engage with this type of organization and come back in the years to come. Thank you.